Alright, so let's say we want to do a bookshelf and a little bit more furniture. So we're going to do a very quick way of doing some books in a bookshelf. So once again, I'm going to start off with a basic polygon cube. And you'll notice that as we're working, it can be a little bit hard to work when you have all this other stuff modeling. A lot of times people will model in different files and then import them in, and that's a good way as long as you have a reference scale so everything is good. I'm actually going to do something. I'm going to hide everything but what I'm working on. So I have this cube, and I'm going to shift select our little friend here. So they both are selected. And I'm going to use what's called the isolate select, this little guy right here. And now only these two things are visible. Everything else is still there, it's just hidden. And now what I want to make sure of is when I go to show isolate select that it also has this checked, auto load new objects. And that means when I duplicate or create something, I don't want it to automatically be hidden. So when I actually start duplicating this cube and doing different things, I want the new duplicates to show up and not be invisible, so I don't have to keep on selecting these things, turning isolate select on and off. So now I'm going to take this cube, and using our little friend as a reference, I want to make a bookshelf. Now it's also a good idea if I can actually, I like to do this D, V, and just snap the pivot to the bottom. And the reason being is that number one, I can snap it, hold down V, snap it to his feet. And now when I scale it, it's going to scale from the floor. And this makes it a lot easier for me because now I don't have to keep on adjusting it, and I won't have weird floating furniture and stuff like that. Okay. So I'm going to show you two ways of doing this, and it's actually fairly easy. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to duplicate it one more time, and you'll see why. So I have three boxes. So let's say this middle one. The middle one, I'm just going to extrude the interior and then make some shelves in. And what that basically means, I'm just going to grab this front face, extrude, offset that just a wee bit. And we want to offset. Don't just extrude and push things back, because then you're making things paper thin, you're putting faces on top of each other, doing all sorts of weird things that in real world won't look right. So I give it just this thickness, the thickness of the actual bookshelf, and then I'm going to extrude again and just push that back. If I go too far back, I go out the other side, so I don't want to go that far back. But now I've got the bookshelf frame. And this allows me to now take one of these cubes, scale them down to the thickness that a bookshelf would actually be, and I want to shrink this down just a little bit. And I might shrink it in, just give it a little bit of, let's turn this on, my wire shaded view. Okay. Now, from here I can take this and I can duplicate it. The benefit of doing it this way is we can actually, a lot of bookshelves, they'll have the little hooks, and you can, depending on what you have on the shelf, you can actually go in and maybe I can have a vase or magazines that are larger, or picture frames, all sorts of things to populate this shelf. But they don't have to be equidistant from each other. They can be tighter or closer in some areas. I could even make it that there's doors down here, so maybe it's just shelves up here and then it's closed up papers and stuff like that. But this allows me to have more flexibility and more design to it. And now I could go in, put a picture frame, put a vase, and then just start to do all sorts of stuff that way. So this gives me a lot of flexibility. Then I just grab the whole thing and then combine it. The other way would be to decide how many shelves I want. I want them equidistant, and maybe for some reason I want them to all be a part of the same model. So instead of being separated. So if I went here, once again, to my Insert Edge Loop tool, I want equidistant. So multiple edge loops use equal multiplier. And then, yeah, why not? Let's say 7. I might go with 5, but 7 will work. So what this is going to do is, you could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because it divided 7 times. There's 1 on either side, so it's 8. So now I could actually go into face mode. I select 1, hold down Shift and double click, and I've selected the whole front. See? So I don't have the back or the side selected, just all these in the front. Now, if I just hit extrude and then scale them in, it's going to do exactly the same thing that this did. It just has these extra divisions. But what I can do is tell it to keep faces together, or turn that off. And now when I give it an offset, each one of these now is separated. Now, one fundamental difference you're going to notice, and you want to be careful of this, is the thickness between these. Okay? Because if they are, when I scale this, or if I scale this up, that's pretty thick, and I may not want it that thick. So I might actually tighten that up a little bit, or make some modifications. May make the top and the bottom a little thinner, but that's alright. But I want to be aware of that, because if I make it so that it's like, oh wow, if I just scaled it and these look like they're 3 inches thick, you're not going to have a bookshelf that has 3-inch thick shelves on it. If it comes to that, they'll just use a stronger material, but you won't have chunks of wood that's that thick unless you're, in serious earthquake country and you want a lot of protection on it. But beyond that, you don't want that extra thickness. Now if I extrude and just push those in, now I have my bookshelf. They're all equidistant to each other. And if need be, if I like, wow, this looks thin compared to that, then I can just go in and do a subtle tweak, grab the top, shift grab the bottom, and scale along the Y just to give it just a little extra thickness to balance it out. Just a little hair, and now we can see that looks pretty consistent. So 2 different ways, depending on what it is you're trying to do. There's not really a right way or wrong way. Whatever is easiest. You saw both of them just took a minute. Last thing we need is a book. That'd be great. So if I go create, polygon cube, we want to make a book. Oops. Jinkies, stop that. Oh, bloody hell. There you are. Seed out of that. So, I'm going to scale this up so it's not a dinky book. And I'm going to get it to roughly the shape of the book that I would want. Something like that. And I'm going to do that same thing. Boom. Now, you'll notice I'm using odd numbers, and that's because I always like to have that one edge that's in the center. If I use an even number, it's going to be a space in the center. And I want to use an edge so I can round it off. So I'm going to turn that. Watch this. Super easy book. Press B. And now I'm just going to offset that. Look at that. Now I've got what the ream of paper on the inside, all the papers on the inside. And that actually could work. I want to take it a step further, though. I want a nice little thick cover on that. So I've got what would be my paper. Now I'm going to go into face mode, and I'm just going to select what was the end, the top and the bottom. And I'm going to extrude, offset slightly. It's okay, it's giving me this flicker. I'm basically offsetting it to give that little bit of thickness in there like that. That looks nice. Now I'm going to extrude one more time and then adjust the thickness, and look at that. It doesn't have to be that thick, but yeah, that looks good. Just like that. And now I've got a nice, quick, easy book. Look at that. How many seconds? Not that long. Now, the cool thing about this is that now I can take this, I can rotate it, and then I could start putting it, I could scale it and put it on the shelf, and you go, whoops, that book looks awfully big. Or these, maybe I should have had a little smaller shelves, maybe 5 instead of 7. Whatever the case, let's go over here. And then I could just scale it to what I need and say, wow, you know what, I'm going to scale you down. And I'm going to bring you down, give it a little bit of books. Now, one last tip. People will make a bookshelf and then they make all the books the same size, and then they make them the same thickness, and they're all perfectly stacked and packed that they fit, and that's baloney. That makes no sense whatsoever, because it's too frickin' perfect, unless it's just you have nothing but encyclopedias from the same place. So you want to add some chaos to it, and what that means is I go in, I might duplicate this book, and I may do it a few times, and then maybe the book next to it is going to be a little bit thinner, a little bit taller. And maybe this one we're going to take over here and we're going to rotate it so it's just kind of leaning up against there. And what I'm doing is I'm starting to make this look a lot more realistic. I'm making it so that it's like, oh, wait a minute, this looks like this could actually be a real bookshelf. And I just vary things up a little bit and start to make it, and that's how I would start to fill it up. So adding chaos is really important. Whenever you have things that look too perfect, everything's laid out, everything's the right size, everything's lined up perfectly, that really doesn't make much sense, and the human eye is going to catch that and it's going to look weird. So you want to add some variety to this, and then put some little trinkets or different things, but you want to vary things up. You don't want things to be perfect. That's kind of like why I like these kind of shelves better than these, because they're a little less organized, they're a little more designed, and follow more, use the method of form following function more. So this actually helps out a lot more.